Welcome back to Between the Whistles. And you're with Joe and Cindy. And actually, this is a kind of special segment of the Cindy and Joe show on Between the Whistles Detroit. We are here at Little Caesars Arena, which we told you we were going to be here. And here we are. And what's even better about it is we are here with one of my favorite people of all time. She is a Detroit legend, and her name is Jackie Kallen. She's also known as the First Lady of Boxing, and I love it because she was a chick that went into the men's world and literally kicked butt. She was fantastic, and so Jackie, if you can just tell for those of you, those of our viewers who are not familiar with who you are, just get a little bit of a background on who you are and what you've done here in the city of Detroit and the sport of boxing.
Well, I started out as a journalist. So I was a newspaper reporter for 25, 28 years actually. And I interviewed celebrities. That was my forte. Interviewed, all the different rock stars, all the different movie stars, sports stars, politicians, anybody that came through town that was interesting, I interviewed. And I loved it. I went to the Oscars and the Grammys, and it was just the most fun I ever had until I became a sports writer, and that was in the mid 70s. And there were no women going into locker rooms and covering sports then, so it was pretty unique. And through covering sports, I discovered boxing, and that became my favorite sport. And after covering boxing, I became the publicist for the Kroc Gym, which is a legendary gym here. It's still going on here in Detroit.
Absolutely.
And the first one burned down, unfortunately, and now they have a new one. But boxing just fascinated me, so I decided that I would like to get involved. I had no idea that I would end up becoming a boxing manager, a boxing promoter, boxing publicist, and all the different things that you can do in the sport of boxing. Having a boxing podcast and all the other things. And I love the sport. And I still manage fighters. I've got two undefeated fighters, and I've got one that's 3-1. He lost a very close decision, but he'll be back September 16th. And boxing is just my niche sport.
And you're one of the few managers, from what I know, who managed the champions in multiple weight classes.
Yes, and being a woman managing world champions is unique because there aren't that many women in the sport to begin with.
Right.
And so when I got involved in boxing, there were none. And I was really an anomaly. I don't think they knew what to make of me. Like, who is this blonde woman and what is she doing here? But now, after 44 years, they're kind of used to seeing me around. I'm sort of the OG.
Yeah, you've earned your respect and everything.
Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah. Well, it's like when, there's women that come into sports, like in football, they're starting to come into sports. There's hockey, they're starting to come into sports. Basketball, they're starting to come into sports. What would you tell the women that are coming into sports like that? What would you tell them when they're breaking the goal?
I think the main thing is to develop a thick skin. Don't let anything bother you. Don't let other people's opinions deter you or discourage you. And don't take things seriously. In other words, don't get your feelings hurt if somebody makes a comment or tries to tell you don't belong here. Just focus straight ahead. Don't pay attention to the haters, because a lot of times the people that are directing those negative thoughts towards you or comments are really just jealous because they can't do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so we all have haters, and it's just part of life.
Yeah.
And I just pay no attention to that. Keep a smile on your face, a positive attitude, and don't burn any bridges.
Yeah.
Very smart idea. That's right.
Because sometimes you're going to have to work with these people again.
Yep.
So you just have to develop that thick skin and just let it go over your head and say, it's okay.
So what was it like? What is it like to have a movie made of your life? Your life's been so inspirational and so fascinating, and what you did for the sport of boxing was chronicled in Against the Ropes, and who wouldn't love Meg Ryan to play you? Did you get a choice in who played you in the movie?
I had somewhat of a choice because we narrowed it down to Meg Ryan, Sandra Bullock, Sharon Stone, and
Wow.
Michelle Pfeiffer. And at
All
that time,
phenomenal choices.
yeah, they were all good. And Meg might not have been my first choice. I really wanted Sandra Bullock or Sharon Stone,
That's
but
what I was going to ask, yeah.
and Sharon Stone had just recently had some brain surgery, and she was out of it for a while.
Yeah.
And Michelle Pfeiffer had just done Dangerous Minds. That was a similar kind of a story. And Sandra Bullock was signed to do Blind Side, which I guess she did a few years later. So I ended up with Meg Ryan, which is not a bad thing.
They're not bad,
But
Absolutely.
I wasn't overall happy with the movie, but again, I didn't have creative control.
I think that's the thing though. When you talk about movies, like I remember if you follow people in sports, there's like this HBO show called Lake Show, and I remember Jerry West, who was the general manager at the time, he was pissed because none of the stuff that they said in that series was even remotely true or even close to what he thought. They scripted it up to be a television series more than about what it was actually about.
That's exactly what happens. They take it and it goes through so many different hands. The producers, and then the casting directors decide who they want, and then the screenwriter then starts manufacturing scenes that never happened and dialogue that didn't happen and scenarios that never took place. And when I went to the movie, I went, "Wow, who was that person?" Because it didn't seem like it was me at all. But
Yeah, that's what Jerry West said. He's like, I didn't even say half those things.
Exactly.
Like I didn't say any of that.
That's
He's
right.
pretty mad.
Isn't that amazing? So you're actually watching a movie, but it's almost like it's someone else's life, even though it's supposed to be you.
They scripted up to be like an LA spectacle instead of actual.
So I think what I like to tell people is if you watch the movie of someone's life, buy the book. If they've written a book, if they've written of their life, they wrote it in their own hand, and I think it's more accurate. Would you find that to be true?
100%, because when I'm going to write something, which I did write a book, Between the Ropes, and there's one coming out next month called Against the Odds, the Jackie Kallen story. I didn't write it, it was written about me. It's an authorized biography because I did work with the author. But it's more factual because nobody messed with it and changed the facts.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more of the real story. And interestingly enough, truth is usually more interesting than fiction anyways.
I agree.
So the true story, I think, is a lot more interesting. But the movie did inspire a lot of women and a lot of minorities and people who were like the fish out of water, so to speak, to go for your dream and don't back down and believe in what you can do. And I think in that one respect, I'm happy with the movie.
Good. Yeah.
There's always a plus to whatever we do.
100%. Look for the silver lining and everything because it's there. Sometimes it's a little thin lining, but you can always find something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you're here at Little Caesars Arena because one of the things that we were talking about that I'd like to talk about is venues available for sports. Back in the day when you were at the height of the your career in boxing and so forth in Detroit, and I mean there's just been some absolute legends in sports period that have come out of Detroit, but even particularly in the sport of boxing, you were at the Palace a lot, or you'd be down at Joe Louis or Coke or something like that. Quite a few of those places are gone now, and we have places like this beautiful venue here. What do you see for the future of where does boxing fit in Detroit? Where do we physically go? What's going to work for boxing to revive itself in Detroit? Because I think it's primed for that.
That's such a great question because this has always been a really big boxing city, going back to Joe Louis, back to the days when Jake LaMotta fought here, and Tommy Hearns in the late 70s, 80s, James Toney, the 90s. Yeah, they're all my favorites. But we had regular shows, so people got used to going. It wasn't one here, one there. Now we have a regular series, but it's every few months at Motor City Casino at the Soundboard. Carlos Linas does that. We have another promoter here, Dimitri Salita, and he does shows either in Dearborn at the Performing Arts Center or the Garden Theater, which is where he's doing his next show next week. And so we have those two venues, Motor City Casino, we have the Garden Theater, we have also Dearborn Performing Arts Center. Then we have sporadic fights here and there. Tommy Hearns and I did one at the Athenian Hotel downtown. There's been fights at little hotel ballrooms, things like that. But we haven't had a consistent program of regular fights. Joe Donofrio did fights, of course, out at the Palace, which is no longer there.
Yep.
Right.
this is the most beautiful arena, and to have fights here would be spectacular.
I think it would open up the world of boxing too. Like obviously, people, you're trying to entice the younger fan base that like, you want to get them involved in the boxing because a lot of these sports across the landscape are trying to get involved in boxing, and they're trying to get involved in football or hockey or baseball. Boxing would be a great sport because it's relatively a cheaper sport, like get them
Right.
involved in.
You don't have a whole team to pay and all that. You have the two fighters, and a typical card might have 8 or 9 bouts. So maybe the main event might be a 10 or 12 round fight. Then you've got the 8, 6, and 4 rounders, and this venue here is perfect for it. However, it's so big,
Yeah.
and boxing doesn't attract 20, 30,000 people. So it might get lost here unless there was a way to, shrink and size down the arena, curtain
Sure.
off a certain area, or if they have an area here that would be smaller where you could get a few thousand people comfortably, because unless it's a major title fight, now if we brought a huge fight here
Yeah.
where we might have 10,000 people or more, then it would be perfect. But I think a regular monthly program would start bringing the people back again, and the numbers would start growing, because we used to get 5,000-10,000 people at the Palace,
Wow.
and for the big fights. But those days seem to be gone. I think that the day of the big fights, they usually will land in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas is a big
No.
one. Yeah.
Or LA,
Yeah.
or the Barclays Center in Brooklyn.
Yeah, but I think Detroit could eventually be something like that.
I would love it. We used to have it here when Tommy Hearns was big, of course. That was the major draw. But I think we're going to need a major marquee name fighter to bring the crowds to get the kind of number for a place this big.
So what would you say to someone who's trying to get into boxing, obviously like in the inner cities or whatever, obviously they would love to be getting into boxing. How would you go about it? You could go to the front gym.
Well, there's many local gyms in different neighborhoods. There's, if you look it up, there's gyms in the, western, northern, southern, like the west side, the
Yeah.
east side. There's gyms everywhere. So you have to find a local gym. They welcome kids to come in of all ages. Some kids start at 10, 12 years old.
Wow.
Other people don't get into boxing until they're in high school or even after high school. It's a great sport, whether you want to be a world champion or you just want to get in great shape, learn how to defend yourself, let out frustration. There's nothing better than hitting that heavy bag when you're in a bad mood. 'Cause by the time you're done, you're like, oh, what was I mad about? I don't even give a shit anymore.
Right. We'd rather
It's
have them
like-
hit that bag than hit their
That
neighbor
hits-
next door.
Or their wife or girlfriend
Or someone,
or
right,
whatever.
right.
It's a wonderful way to release stress. And they're looking for young kids that want to get into boxing. We have Golden Gloves. We have amateur tournaments all the time down in Burke's Warehouse in Eastern Market. And it would be wonderful if more kids went into the sport. But it seems that a lot of the kids are going into basketball, football,
Yeah.
even baseball and hockey, because you get a contract right away. It's a set amount of money. Boxing, you have to work your way up. And when you're a 4-round, 6-round fighter, you don't make much.
Yeah.
And if you're only fighting 2-3 times a year, how long is it going to take you till you're a 10-round fighter
Yep.
and making the big bucks?
Yeah.
It's a long struggle.
It's kind of like being a
So,
golfer. It
Yes.
takes them a while to get to the PGA Tour.
That's right.
Anything like you got to kind of work your way up the ladder, and some of them just don't get to that.
I'm
That's
thinking
right.
about getting into it because, Jack was saying it relieves stress. I'm in politics. It can't be any more stressful, and it'll keep me from
Hello.
hitting Joe.
There you
see?
go, right? It is a great workout, and
Yeah.
a lot of women are into it now. There's a place called Title Boxing that's franchised around town, and it's a 1-hour workout using the heavy bags and letting off steam, but burning calories
Yeah.
and stretching and doing various floor exercises. There's a 15-minute warm-up, a half hour of hitting the bag, and a 15 cool-down time.
Yeah.
And it's a great workout. And I think it's the most complete workout, the boxing workout, because it does your whole body. You're not just doing upper body, lower.
And
You're
great
doing
cardio
everything.
as well.
So-
It's the best for cardio.
Sure.
And believe me, after the first 15 minutes, if you keep going, you're in good shape. And eventually, if you stick with it, you will be in good shape.
Yes.
Yeah, the one thing about boxing is funny because my mom, she's a nurse, so she's got a stressful job as it is. But one of the things that she taught me is bag. She hit the bag almost every day.
Really?
Yeah, almost every day. She's from Detroit, so she likes to hit. She likes. She's a little bit. Obviously, I wouldn't.
I don't
When
want to
I,
mess with your mom.
when I was growing up, there was one person I feared, and there was one person only, and that was my mom. Because I go, if I get in trouble, and this principal calls my mom, I'm dead.
Yeah, say, please call my dad. Please call my dad.
Yeah, I said, please call my dad because I know he's not going to answer.
Right.
That's good. I admire her. I don't even know her, but I love people that are like that. That are strong personalities and that you can count on to discipline you.
Yeah, well,
Because we all need discipline, so that's a beautiful thing.
that's part of the reason that I grew up the way I grew up because obviously I knew that my mom was going to kick my ass if I did.
That's right. It kept you in line.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we're going to have a resurgence here in Detroit in boxing, Jackie, you were saying we need to have a marquee player. Do you think that marquee player needs to originate from Detroit?
Okay. We don't call them players in boxing.
Or players, excuse me. They're fighters.
They're fighters.
We've been
right.
talking hockey for the last hour. So.
Because that's a big thing. We don't call them players because the big saying is you don't play boxing.
There's no way.
It's not it's not a game that you play. It is a definite sport.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough. We need a fighter like a Tommy Hearns or a James Toney that people want to come out and see. So if you bring in a fighter from, let's say, Chicago, and he's a top fighter, people will come out and see him if he's a world champion. But he's not from here, so it's not the same sense of pride. So if we get a champion like Floyd Mayweather, who is a spectacular, undefeated fighter, he's from Grand Rapids. But if he fought here, people would come and see him because he's still Michigan.
Yeah.
But he's retired now. But we need a draw.
You need a draw, yeah.
We need a draw.
I remember I was talking to someone who is in sports, whatever, and he said everyone always loves the hometown kid.
Absolutely.
Everyone always will come out to see the hometown kid. Like, obviously, Remington, Dylan Larkin, there's players, like the guy who Pistons drafted, Jaden Ivey, he's from Detroit. His mom was on the Detroit Shock, so, like, that kind of guy is, like, really interesting to the normal fan.
Exactly right. I agree 100%. We identify with them.
Yes.
We relate to them. You're from Detroit. I'm from Detroit. Now, they're especially excited.
And you're like, I just want this guy to beat the crap out of whoever is the guy. Yeah.
That's exactly right. There's that hometown bragging rights. So we definitely need somebody from here to start winning. And obviously, if we had a world champion from here, hopefully that would help. But Tony Harrison's a fighter from here that won a title, and it didn't seem to ignite the fans as much as James Toney or Tommy Hearns.
Yeah,
did.
Tommy Hearns. That's the guy. That's the guy that everyone knows
Absolutely.
and loves. And you know who Tommy Hearns is, obviously.
I've worked with him for 44 years. Yeah, he's one of my best friends.
He's a sweet
a
guy.
Wonderful guy.
He's a wonderful guy.
He is.
Yeah.
He really put Detroit on the boxing map.
Yes.
And when people hear his name, they go Detroit.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
There's a definite connection between the two.
If you talk about boxers in Detroit, you obviously go Tommy Hearns.
Absolutely. That's it.
So since we're in Hockey Town,
Yes.
and we're talking about the resurgence of boxing and bringing back the sport and what a value that would be, there is a concept I'd like to ask you about.
Sure.
There's a concept of, because people love to see fights in hockey, and of course they are intrigued by the idea of maybe taking fighters and putting them on skates on ice and combining the two sports, and they call it ice fights and things like this, where you actually have an event that is a combination of boxers on skates or skaters boxing.
Right.
What do you think of that concept? Do you think it would work here?
I've seen it. It's been done recently, and it's a kind of a hybrid sport. It's its own little niche sport, and it's fun to watch. Because people used to go to hockey games, wait for fights to break out,
Right.
and they'd be very quick and they'd be broken up right away. These are actual planned fights between guys on skates, and they're orchestrated as far as who's going to fight who.
Right.
And they're 1 minute rounds, and it's interesting to watch. I think it's fun to watch. I don't know if it's going to be one of the major sports,
Yeah.
but I think as a smaller, like roller derby is a niche sport. There's certain
Maybe a niche sport,
Right.
kind of like a roller derby, like something like that. I mean, it'd be nice to see it like kind of perk up and be like
It's
major
a lot of
sport.
fun. The one that I watched, that was real interesting, and it wasn't as much boxing to me as it. Well, it wasn't in a boxing ring with. It was different, but it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
So what's next for you, Jackie? I can't believe an amazing career that you've had. You are still going strong. You do more than most people could think of doing, in a year you do in a week. It's amazing. What's next for you?
Well, I'm working, interestingly enough, on a TV show called Queen of the Ring. It's female boxing, and I'm working with the producer of The Contender and a movie producer that did the movie Sling Blade and a lot of other movies. So we're working with a big name who is not signed yet, so I can't say anything, but we're hoping to start working on that in LA later this year. And that's, real exciting to me. And of course, as I said, the book will be coming out. I do motivational speaking, so I travel wherever there's a group that wants me to come and speak to them. I love doing that. I spoke at an Indian reservation in North Dakota.
Wow.
And that was so much fun. I loved that. And, speaking's one of the things that I enjoy the most. And this TV show is very exciting to me. And then I got contacted from someone that does The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And they want to do a dating show for older women, sort of like Golden Girls
I love it.
meets Love Connection. So they want me
I
to
love it.
They want me to host that, so we're in the development stage of that. So that should be a lot of fun.
That could be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I know people like The Bachelor and Bachelorette. I
Right.
don't like it,
But this is like for baby boomers,
Right.
the my generation, because we still want love and romance. And
Absolutely.
and there's a lot of baby boomers around. So, that'll be a fun show. That would be in the spring because we're still in development on that. But,
Yeah.
I just got done co-producing an independent film in January and February called The Legend of Jack and Diane that's being edited now. And I'm working on another one that's going to start filming in November, also going to co-produce. And so I'm doing all the things I love, so what could be better?
I know watching your Facebook, like, you're always doing something.
I am, and that's the beauty of life, is that there are so many opportunities, and you just have to be open to them all. And, fortunately, I have a lot of energy.
Yeah. And it's keeping you young, too.
It does, because to be honest, I'm closer to 80 than 70. So for me, energy is very important.
You don't look those 80 years.
Thank you. Well, I'm 76.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever knew what 76 was going to be like till I got here.
Yeah.
And I feel 40, and so I'm just happy as could be.
That's fantastic. And for those who are watching our podcast, matter of fact, we were just talking, Joe and I mentioned the last one, the JC Sports Network, which covers Between the Whistles, Detroit Red Wings news, Detroit Lions news, and all of our other social media outlets. Last month we reached about 22 million people, and we'd love for them to get exposed to you. So we're going to go ahead and put a link on our pages to your Facebook or your social media.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And how else can they reach
Well,
you?
Facebook,
They want to follow you.
Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.
Cool.
So,
Perfect. And just Jackie
the
Kallen,
usuals.
they just
Yeah.
search?
Obviously
Okay.
people should get to know who you are because you
Absolutely.
are just a legend.
Oh,
Especially-
thank you so much.
Especially for females, you're someone who broke the mold of what everybody wants to get in.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words. When you work hard, sometimes your biggest reward is that respect. More than the money is knowing you've made a difference.
Made an
So
impact,
I
yeah.
thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here with
always
us
great
today.
to
We're
talk to
so
you, too.
excited to have you.
You
and
guys call and I'm right here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we appreciate that. And I'll tell you, I said she's such a mentor and an inspiration to me. I know that I've got a long way to go, and but I sure do appreciate having a mentor like
My
you, Jackie.
pleasure.
And I hope to see a resurgence of boxing in Detroit, and I know you'll be a huge
I
part of
hope
that.
so. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll
Bye-bye.
see you next time.